This is the Blackout Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people doing amazing things. And today, I'm happy to have Jennifer on the podcast today. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Well, my name is Jennifer Murphy, and I'm a local makeup artist here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I predominantly work with brides during the wedding season, so yeah.
So now, pretty much.
Yeah, right now we're in full bridal season, so I'm busy.
What made you decide to get into makeup?
I've always been kind of obsessed with makeup. I always used to apply it on myself. Kind of started off when I was little and do my own makeup for ballet recitals and things like that. And then from there, it just grew as a passion of mine. And I remember in high school, every day I would wake up and take an hour. I would sit down, I would do my makeup. It was always the best part of my day. And then, I would go to school. But then I found friends would always reach out to me in high school, and I would do friends' makeup for prom. And I had a girlfriend who asked me to do her wedding makeup, and that was really exciting. But I never really thought I could pursue it as a career until I was probably 19. So, yeah.
What happened then?
Well, I was attending Mount Allison University, and I was just doing my initial plan, because I was always in love with art. I didn't quite know what was my medium yet, but I had applied to Mount Allison because I wanted to do their fine arts program, but I didn't get in. But I figured I should just go anyways, which I don't know if I really thought that through, but I was like, yeah, let's go to university and, try to figure it out from there. Maybe I could get into the program eventually. But I was doing a psychology degree, and I wasn't feeling very passionate about it. I was feeling actually a little lost. I didn't really know why I was doing it. And I kind of wanted a change of pace after my second year. I also had a really bad breakup, so I think I just wanted a fresh start.
Or?
Yeah, in school. My boyfriend didn't go to the school that I was attending, but I was just having a really hard time, and I kind of just wanted a fresh start. And I knew a girl who her name is Sasha Andrews. She goes by Sasha Taylor. She was actually working in Halifax as a makeup artist for a long time. She's very talented. But she attended the makeup school that I eventually went to, Blanche MacDonald in Vancouver. Oh, wow. And I remember seeing her photos and being like, oh my gosh, that looks exactly what I would want to do. Because she was always doing glamour makeup or photo shoots. So I started playing around with the idea. And I suggested it to my mother. I was like, hey, what would you think if I pursued this as a career? And she was so excited. She's like, this is amazing. I love it. I want you to do that. So we kind of just made a plan that I was going to then attend Blanche MacDonald in the following year. And it was great. So that's what I ended up doing. I moved out to Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long were you in school for?
It was a yearlong program.
And how was the experience being in school?
Honestly, it was great. I loved it. It was wonderful. There were some things that I don't think I feel sometimes I'm a little short-sighted when I'm thinking about things. I don't really think them through all the way. So I didn't really realize that attending school, I don't know why, but I thought we'd have models to be putting makeup on every day. But that wasn't the case. There's not an endless stream of models that just want to sit for you. So we ended up having to sit for one another. And I just found I kind of had, by the end of the program, after doing that for a year, I was a little I don't even want to look at makeup. I don't want to get it put on me. I'm over it. Because there's so many different modules we had to do. Because the program's really inclusive. It has so many different things. So you start off doing just soft makeup, bridal makeup, basically beauty. You kind of then go into more avant-garde looks, fashion, and doing decade replications. And then you'll get into TV and film. And so that's when you're making road rash and cuts and burns. And so that's less in my wheelhouse of things I love to do. Because I was like, it was cool. It was definitely challenging. Like, I remember we had to remake the makeup from The Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was really cool. And I remember having like a lot of fun, like, because you'll be using different like sculpting like clays and stuff to try to get like different features on the face. So that was really fun and cool. And we did airbrushing, which was really cool. So like body painting, that was really fun. I was really lucky. I had a great model, Alyssa Hansen. But yeah, it was great.
So excuse me. So here's the thing though. You do all these things over the course of a year. Which of those ones stood out the most for you?
And it makes me feel like I'm so basic, but it was really beauty. Like, like when it came to our finals, so our like finals for the entire year, you got to choose what module you wanted to focus and display for your portfolio.
Yeah.
And so I just did a bridal look, which it's so funny because I feel like now I predominantly work with weddings and brides, but even when I finished makeup school, I was like, what am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? But it's like, as my final, I chose to do a bridal look. Like, I don't know why I wasn't just like full on into freelancing for weddings and kind of, it took me a while to kind of come to the realization that that's what I was most passionate about.
Oh, okay. So when you finished school, did you move back to Halifax?
Yeah, I kind of...
Right away?
Yeah, so I was serving when I lived in Vancouver, and when I finished my program, I was still doing that, and I just felt a little discouraged because I was like, man, like all I'm doing is serving. I'm not even working in the industry that like I worked so hard to kind of get my program certification, and I just didn't know what the next step was, and I remember talking to my parents because they lived in Newfoundland, so that's like the absolute opposite end of the country. And they were kind of like, just like come home, like figure it out. We'll like, see what you should do next. And I actually was like, man, I should finish my bachelor's degree. So I actually re-enrolled into Dal.
Oh, okay.
And I was like taking a couple courses, which was fun. I liked being like a mature student in the class because I was like, in all these like first year classes, I was a little bit older and I was like, this is such a cakewalk. Like, university's a lot easier this time around. But so I did like one semester, but during that semester, I actually got hired on by a retail makeup counter. So that just became my focus. I kind of just dropped school. I was like, you know what? I love this. I'm just going to do it. I'm starting to make money doing what I love. So that then became my focus.
And then, do you remember your first wedding?
My first wedding.
Paid wedding.
My first paid wedding. Well, I did one when I was in makeup school, and it was on the Sunshine Coast. It was actually a lot of fun. So, so one of my classmates and friends, she knew a gal who was getting married, and they wanted us to do their wedding. And literally, it was like, I had very little experience at that point. And I had a very small kit. Like, I had like my makeup kit from school, but I mean, it didn't have any stellar products in it. But we split the bridal party and everyone looked gorgeous. It was really fun. I remember that being like, a really good experience, but it was like a one-off. Like I didn't do it for a couple years after that. Cause then I kind of just worked at Mac and I would do makeup appointments there. And then eventually I would get people requesting me to do things kind of on the side. And I actually remember my boyfriend at the time was like, oh, I keep recommending you to people to do their wedding makeup. And I got so angry at him because I was like, I don't have the time. Like I work every Saturday. I can't do it. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to help out. I think, you'd be great at it. And I kind of dragged my feet before I started doing like more independent work. But eventually I did a wedding for a friend's sister, and it was so sweet. At the end, they took a photo with me, which is like so cute. Like, I don't know why. It's like one of my favorite photos, but I'm just like sitting in the middle of like all these gals and they're so glam. And it was just like, I felt so, like, I don't know. It made me feel really good that they wanted to get a photo with me. And it was wonderful. But it's so funny because I look at that photo and since then I've done 2 of the other bridesmaids' weddings.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I'm consulting with one of the gals who's actually going to be getting married down south, so she wants to do her own makeup, so I'm going to teach her how to do it.
So when you say consulting, what does that involve?
So it's more like teaching. So like doing a lesson. So I'm kind of giving them the tools and the confidence to do their own makeup.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, because sometimes it's just different, because some ladies don't wear a lot of makeup day to day, so it's really foreign. They need, to kind of learn the basics.
Okay, and then so you do Mac, and then you're like, oh well, I'm getting independent work. I'm doing it on the side. When was the time you said, you know what, I'm going full on to do this for myself?
Well, so there was a couple factors. I was full time, towards the end of my tenure with the company, but then they did like company wide cuts, and my hours were cut. And I was kind of like, oh, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to get another job? And it was kind of like, do I stay working here, which doesn't give me a lot of flexibility of my schedule to do more freelance, or do I just kind of take the leap and do freelance work and just like as many makeup gigs as I can? And I was definitely nervous, because I feel like I always tell myself this isn't a career and I can't like make a living, or you know what I mean? I'll never be able to pay my bills doing this stuff. But then slowly but surely work keeps coming my way, and then I'm like, okay, I can do this. So, it was like a slow start again. I figured I should probably like diversify my skills and not just only offer makeup. So I took a lash course as well.
What was that?
So lash extensions, it's a really popular trend right now. It's
I
kind of
like
nice.
the eyelashes.
Yeah. So essentially you're taking a lash extension, you're isolating someone's natural lashes and you're placing it on their lash. So then they get like a set of very glamorous looking lashes.
And how long, like, what, is it for the day, or can you stay on for long?
So they stay on until that natural lash falls out.
Holy
in the natural
smokes.
lash cycle. Yeah. So it's like kind of like semi-permanent. It's not permanent at all, but
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be there for like a few weeks. So it's a nice kind of low maintenance way to feel a little extra glam. Yeah.
Okay, so like it makes the blink have more impact.
That's amazing. I'm going to steal that. That sounds so good. Yeah. It definitely kind of I find ladies love it because it's so easy. They wake up, they feel like they look like they're wearing makeup, but they're not. Yeah.
Talking of that, there's this thing, is it permanent makeup? Like, is that what it's called?
Do you mean like the microblade?
No. Like where you're pretty much always made up.
Yes. So lash extensions wouldn't fall under permanent makeup.
Yeah, but so that's what I'm asking. What is that?
Permanent makeup would be placing pigment into the skin via like a tattooing tool.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So you're always looking like that and it lasts forever, or?
It will fade over time because it's placed in a layer of the dermis that regenerates.
Okay.
But I mean, it would be there for like 2 to 3 years, and then
What?
and then you'd want to get it touched up. But you can do like eyeliner like that. Brows, ombre brows are really popular as semi-permanent makeup. And then now there's also like lip tattooing, which I think is really beautiful.
What was that?
So it's essentially it's like you're placing pigment on the lip. You're filling in the shape and the color,
Okay.
and so it kind of looks like your lips are drawn on.
Okay, I'm sorry. It sounds painful.
It's not like it's probably a little uncomfortable. I mean, I'm sure they numb the area. I'm not an expert in it. I know it's like a service that other people offer. I don't offer it myself.
Yeah.
But I do know that they will numb the area, and it's not. I don't think it's definitely uncomfortable, but I mean, it's kind of subjective because.
So when you now have permanent makeup done, does that mean you don't need to get any makeup? Like,
well, it means that you would, you definitely, it depends. Again, it's like kind of subjective. If you're someone who likes a full glam, well, then you just would probably still wear foundation, but you wouldn't have to fill in your brows, or you wouldn't have to like do liner, or put on your lipstick. It'd already be done, so you could skip a couple steps. But I mean, for some women, that's like all that they would need, right? Because they're just like, well, now I look put together and fresh. So yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then what with microblading? What's that one?
Okay, so microblading is semi-permanent makeup as well. So there's microblading and there's ombre brows, but microblading is with like a pronged tool. It's a blade, and you're placing it in the skin, and you're pulling, and you're placing it with pigment. So when you're doing that, you're creating individual hair strokes, And so the illusion is that you have like a fuller 3D looking brow.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's still like, it's still natural looking. It doesn't look like a powder fill or like a makeup fill. It'll look like you just have
It's
more
your own
natural.
brow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like thicker brow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a great option for ladies who find that their eyebrow hair is super sparse. Like it was a big trend like a couple years ago to really tweeze away your brows.
That's what I was gonna ask next.
Yeah.
The one where they like kind of use thread and pull it off. Like, is that what it's called? Like they kind of pull your hair off with the thing with the like.
Okay, have you seen like some makeup videos online that
Yeah.
are like a I know there's so many products now. So I think that's like an at-home product you can buy, but essentially that's kind of like a tinting product.
Oh, okay.
So I mean a lot of salons and spas and estheticians will offer like shaping and tinting. And so again, there's so many options for brows, and it's because I think in the past like 5, if not 10 years, people have realized how important eyebrows are. They just frame your face. And that's why you'll see so, like women wear such strong brows now, and some of them don't as well. Like I find that there's a really wide range of what women like as their brows, but I always say it's so user specific because women really like to see their brows a certain way, and it's different for every woman. So some women like them to look really fluffy and full and kind of bushy, like a really kind of natural soft brow. I kind of feel like that's the bigger trend as of this moment, like a big fluffy brow. But some women like a really like sharp and like shaped brow. And they'll probably want to use like makeup products to achieve that, to get like a lot of definition. But to just have like a tint on the brow, like say you naturally have a lot of brow hair, you just want it to be like shaped and maybe like a little darker, you can do a brow shaping either by like waxing or threading. And
Threading, yes,
yeah.
that's the thing.
Oh, okay, that's it. Yeah,
that's
threading.
what else.
Yeah, so threading's like a cool technique where you're using pieces of thread to remove the hair and shape the brow.
Looks painful.
I don't know. I've never had it done.
Everything looks painful to me.
Well, you know what they say, like beauty is pain or whatever. It shouldn't be painful, but you know, we always kind of go through things.
So here's the thing. When you actually first before I get to this one, what do you think of makeup tutorials on YouTube?
I think they're great. I think they're a wonderful resource. I think it's amazing. I think the internet is the best thing ever. You know, the internet is where it's at. So I just think it's a great resource. Like I know people always feel this need to, if they're really passionate about makeup, they're like, oh, like, well, I can't be a makeup artist if I can't like go to school or get a certification. And like in some ways that is true because to work as a makeup artist in Halifax, it's board regulated. So you do need certain certifications. But I mean, you can always learn online. Like I feel like your ability is directly linked to your effort and your passion. So if you want to go on the internet, you want to watch YouTube videos, you want to learn, and you want to become the best makeup artist possible, I think that you can do that with that resource. It's wonderful. And there's so many videos like breaking down so many different looks, so many different opinions. There's a lot of like product knowledge, people explaining what products work best for like certain skin tones or certain issues that you'll incur. So I think it's wonderful. And I think I know a lot of makeup artists who are self-taught, you know, and they're phenomenal. Like I don't always think that like school like necessarily is what makes you a great makeup artist. So,
but on the other hand, I mean, since you actually went to school to do this, is there any advantage of actually going to a school?
Definitely. Like I'm not going to like discredit going to school. It was amazing. And especially with types of makeup that are that have like a risk factor in them. So when you're like when you're doing certain things for like special effects, like you're doing prosthetics, like, you know, movies like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, when they're turning people into orcs and like goblins or whatever, you're using products that are like glues and adhesives on the skin. And you just want to make sure, because I mean, when you're a makeup artist, your clients are humans, they're people. So you want to make sure that you're looking after them, that you're not going to do anything that might hurt their skin or damage their skin. So, I mean, there's certain protocols and procedures that are really necessary and important to learn. And I mean, you can find stuff on the internet, but when you're doing a course like that, it's super thorough. It's going to walk you through all those steps. And for some makeup artists, like that is their wheelhouse. Like that's all that they want to do is special effects and like TV and film makeup.
Okay. Well, let me go back to this one. You were mentioning a makeup kit. What are things you must have in your makeup kit?
For me as like a freelance makeup artist, things that I must have. I honestly use so many products. I want to like rattle off a million things, but things that would be necessary, I think would be like a good concealer palette with a good color range so that you can accommodate any skin tone and like adjust to like make colors darker or like bring out different undertones. So I think like a good color range and like a concealer or foundation palette is super important. Like just like the basics, like I think mascara, like lip products, a couple different things. But I mean, there's certain products that I wouldn't want to not have in my kit if I was doing a gig, because not only am I doing the makeup for like the final effect, I need to ensure that it has like longevity on my clients so that it's going to wear all day, right? They want to look the same as they do in the morning during their bridal photos, and they want to look the same at night when they're like dancing on the dance floor.
So on a wedding, are you there all day? Do you just hang out all day and do touch-ups?
Well, it's an option. I mean, if they wanted to pay for me to stay and do touch-ups, but I mean, it's not really typical. I usually suggest to the clients and like the bridesmaids to bring their own lip products to touch up with, like one or two things to just maintain the makeup themselves, because it's really easy once it's on there, because typically the only thing that will really come off is your like lip products during the day as you like eat and drink. But really everything else I try to like just make sure that it's going to stay on the face the same way. So I'm using like primers, I'm using setting sprays before and after the makeup, just to really make sure that everything's on there.
Okay. Let's rewind now. A bride comes, or would-be bride says, "Hello, Jennifer. I saw you on Instagram. I love what you do. I want you to do the thing for my wedding." What happens from then to the day of the wedding?
Okay, so typically I'll send them out just like my booking information and my bridal contract for them to review. So that kind of breaks down.
Wait. Bridal contract. What's that?
So that's just it's like a contract I have between myself and the clients, and it just assures them that I'm going to be there on their wedding day and I'm going to fulfill like my job, and then that they're going to like follow through with their booking. So yeah, so I mean, because I book off, I take a non-refundable deposit, just because, you know what I mean. It's just It's just the business, you know. The business.
You don't want someone to be like, "Oh yeah, you know what, cancel last minute," and you could have filled that spot up with someone else.
Well, that's it. Like I get so many inquiries for like so many of the same dates. So, you know, as soon as I lock someone in, like I don't want to be turning away other clients that I could have accommodated. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like this is like the worst, like or not the worst, but the hardest part for me is like the business side of things, because I'd rather just like focus on like the artistry, but I mean it's just like
you gotta pay those bills.
Yeah, exactly. So the bridal contract just kind of like goes over everything, and then typically we'll kind of like discuss the look. I like to send like a little questionnaire to my brides before they come in for a trial. So we always do at least one trial. Sometimes there's more, but we always do at least one trial before the wedding to kind of plan.
What's the trial? What happens in the trial?
It's just a full makeup look.
Oh, okay.
So I ask them to kind of fill out a questionnaire. We talk about like what their ideal makeup would be, because again, just like eyebrows, like everyone's ideal makeup look is different. Like it's never the same. So it's nice to kind of go over what they like and what features they like to highlight best. And then I'll ask them to bring a couple of reference photos as well. So then we do the trial where we apply the makeup and then we kind of troubleshoot and see if there's anything that they would want to change, or like I always ask them to give me feedback afterwards to see how the makeup wore, like if anything came off or if anything was kind of funny by the end of the day. And then we just make a note of it. And then by the time of their actual wedding day, we have like their perfect makeup look already planned out.
So they come through, you put on the makeup, they wait for the day pretty much?
Pardon?
Like, do they keep the makeup on for the day, or do you wash?
Yeah.
Okay.
For like the entire day. I mean, some people have told me that they've slept in it and they're like, oh, I woke up and it looked the same. I'm like, okay.
Okay. And then between the trial and then the wedding day, is there anything that happens between that, or just?
I mean, it's like an open line of communication. So like if anything changes, I'm like, you tell me, just let me know. I usually have the contract because we'll agree on how many people I'm doing as the bridal party, because as one person, I feel like I have my limits, especially if there's like a constraint time frame that they're trying to work within. You know, I have to let them know, well, within that time frame, this is how many people I can do. So there's like that type of agreement as well. But I mean, I'm very flexible. So if there's more time and there's more people that want to get their makeup done, then we can also like do that. And
Okay, so what's a good number?
a good number, my perfect bridal day would be like one bride, 4 bridesmaids, maybe like a mother of the bride. Like that's very like manageable, not stressful. I find once you get into like 7, 8 plus people, that's like a lot of people to be doing makeup for.
Do you ever, when you have situations like that, do you ever like get someone to help you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple weddings this summer that I've booked with like different makeup artists, so I'm really excited about that. And I actually just booked one for next year in August with another makeup artist.
That's the other thing I found out, that people book
so far in advance. Yeah, I haven't really advertised I'm booking for 2020, but because I'm like, I get so anxious when people are like, oh, like this day in 2020. I'm like, 2020? What am I going to be doing then? Like, I don't know if I want to commit, but I know I'm going to be here and doing makeup, so I'm just biting the bullet.
I was surprised to find out like 2 years ahead, and like it's the cake, the makeup, and the photographer.
Yeah, and the venue too.
And the venue. Oh my God, the venue, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different vendors that you need to book in advance, especially if you have like someone specific that you wanted. Like I'm sure there's plenty of people that would be like available last minute, but if you had your heart set on someone, I'm sure that like the sooner the better if you want to kind of lock them in for your wedding date. Okay,
here's one. I mean, like on those TV shows, reality shows where the bride is nuts. Have you ever had such an experience where
like a bridezilla?
Yeah.
That's so funny. No, I wouldn't say I've ever really had a bridezilla.
Yeah.
I think well, first off, I think East Coast people are so relaxed and sweet. You know what I mean? Like everyone's so friendly here. Yeah. When I lived in Vancouver, I felt like people never wanted to like interact with one another. It was like a little more standoffish, but everyone's so friendly here and warm. Honestly, like a lot of my brides are just like the sweetest girls. Like they're so nice. And women, the sweetest women. But I think there's definitely like an element of stress that comes along with a wedding. And so like if anyone is like just a little tense or stressed out, I get it. Like I would be the same way. So, and you just can't take any of it personally. You know, it's a really high stress time for people.
Are you married?
No.
So now on your when you're married, are you gonna get someone to do your makeup? Will you do it for yourself?
It's so funny because like I don't know why, but I keep thinking about like my dream marriage lately. I don't know if it's just because I'm like, oh wow, I'm 27. Like, is it gonna happen at some point? But I keep planning my dream wedding. I feel like such a dork talking about this because I'm like so far from being even like engaged. But yeah, I do think I want someone. I know. I'm like, do I want someone to do my makeup? Because I'm so specific about it. But yeah, I think I'd want to be like pampered on my wedding day. And I have like a couple people in mind that I would ask too. My boyfriend's probably like, relax.
So here you said the bride kind of has to have lipstick or something for her lips for the day.
Yeah, so I always suggest to the bride to go out. Like I'll suggest a couple places for her to go to try on different lip products, and because I find like that's a really like easy task. Like certain things with makeup are really hard for some women to kind of wrap their heads around because they just don't do it day to day and they find it overwhelming. But finding like your like favorite lip color is kind of fun. It's not like stressful, you know what I mean? You get to go in, try on some different lipsticks, and you see what makes you feel your absolute best and what makes you pop. And then I just tell them to bring that product, and I usually apply it on them, and then they'll have it for touch-ups, and it's like a way for them to really incorporate their own personal style into the look. Yeah.
Do you? Okay, no, I'm not gonna ask that one. I mean, I guess when you do the makeup though, like you have to plan for if the bride cries her eyes out on the day.
Yeah, I try to encourage them to cry pretty. I'm like, I'm like, cry like delicately, like a princess, and just like tap at yourself. But like, honestly, if someone's telling me that they're going to be, because some people are very honest, they're like, I'm super emotional, I'm going to be bawling my eyes out. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Well, we're going to try to lock it in as best as possible. I'll try to use like longwear products that are waterproof. If I'm using like any mascara, it's always waterproof for weddings. But if it's someone who I know is going to cry a lot, I'll try to avoid doing anything super heavy underneath the eye, just because it's like more to touch up. But typically, like I find if I am there for a touch up after someone's like done a first look or like seen their husband and got like a little teary eyed, there's not usually like a lot of like running makeup or anything. Typically, it's kind of locked in there. Yeah.
So apart from makeup, are there other things you're passionate about?
Yeah. I mean, do you mean like in life or do you mean
in life?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm the most boring person, but like I like to read. I love watching Netflix. I love running. Like a lot of my favorite things to do are solo activities. So I think it's just because I'm kind of like an introvert, extrovert. So I love just spending time by myself. And I know I was talking to you about like face charts. I love.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. So that one is actually, so you sit down, you kind of come up with the.
Yeah. So like I love drawing and I'm obsessed with like the artistry behind makeup. And what's nice too is when I'm doing face charts, essentially they're just like a sheet of like art paper with a face, and you paint or you'll make a makeup look with makeup on this face chart. And I love it because you can be extremely creative. It's not like a client's makeup where they have a preference and they're like, no, like don't do that. You can really just kind of do whatever you want. For me, it's kind of like cathartic. Like I love pouring myself into a face chart if I'm like stressed or like upset about something, because it's something fun that I can focus on. And the end result is always great. Like I find the more I do them, like the better I get at it, and it's just like a fun way to kind of express myself. But I would do a lot of them when I used to work for MAC Cosmetics, where you would just like to like celebrate the release of a new makeup line, I would do like a face chart inspired by the products. But I've actually kind of gotten back into doing like a module that I did at school was digital makeup. So what that was kind of like doing face charts on Photoshop. And I really love doing that. Like I remember I designed like a monster makeup on there.
Oh, wow.
And it was like pretty cool. But I didn't really think of doing like beauty makeup on it, but I started kind of doing beauty makeup on Photoshop, and that was really fun. And again, it's less like tactile, obviously, because you're using like an Illustrator pad. But it's still beautiful and amazing. And it just reminds me of like fashion and art and like all my favorite things. So yeah.
With the face chart, I don't know if you put them on your Instagram. You do?
I have them on my personal Instagram, not on my business Instagram.
Oh yeah. Actually, let's talk about that. With social media, why is that a good divide to have like personal and business?
It's so funny because like, and I always like debate back and forth because like I'll see other makeup artists who will like include more of themselves in their feed or like their personal lives in their feed, and I'm kind of like, I just like don't think that I don't feel like I'm like what people are interested in. Do you know what I mean? Like I just feel like people want my makeup. They don't want to like see what I'm up to. Like I'm having coffee at this cafe, you know? Like I just think whatever. Plus I'm just a little shy. Like I feel uncomfortable putting like everything out there online. So I just would rather be behind the scenes.
And you feel that, especially with social media, there's especially with Instagram where anybody can just send you a direct message. Do you find that you get messages that are not really about work or just people not being polite, I guess?
I find with my like business Instagram handle, I actually request no DMs because if I don't follow you, sometimes it'll just go into my request folder and I won't see it. And so if it's like a time sensitive thing, like you wanted to book an appointment tomorrow or something like that, I'm like, I would rather you contact me directly by like phone or email. But I haven't had any issues on my like professional page of anyone like soliciting me for things. But I mean, on my personal Instagram, have I had people send me like weird messages like sliding into the DMs? Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Like politely. Sometimes I just like whenever I'm uncomfortable, I'll just try to like ignore that it's happening. So I'll just be like, oh, great.
So, we're just talking about the internet now, and I was wondering if you had like any super negative experiences.
Yes, I have had a really negative experience. And it started like I think 2 years ago now. I'm a little fuzzy on the timeline, but I started receiving I actually wasn't receiving the messages directly myself initially. But I remember I was home in Newfoundland with my mother one weekend, and I had a bunch of people sending me messages, and like our house is kind of like a little off the grid, so we don't have the best reception, but I had multiple people messaging me at once, like, and sending me like very concerning messages, and they were attaching screenshots and I couldn't download them, but they're like, hey girl, like I got this weird message and it has your name in it, I just want to let you know. And it was like an anonymous account. The account was named Jessica Jones, and it had this like really strange message, and it was accusing me of being like a liar and a thief, and that just, I don't know, I was like racist and a couple other things. And I remember being really freaked out by it, and I was like panicking and I didn't know what to do, and I was upset. And obviously I'm like a very like emotional person and I can't hide my emotions. So when I was with my mother, she was like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you acting weird? And I told her what had happened, and she was like, well, Jennifer, like this seems like it's probably just someone who like is like jealous or something, don't think too much about it. And I kind of was like, okay, for sure. But I was still uncomfortable about it, but I did just kind of ignore it. And so a month passed, and when I woke up one morning, I had a really long message under one of my Instagram photos, and it said, it was always like rambling, kind of broken English, but it said that like I had a knife and I was planning to stab someone, and that I like sold cocaine and like just stuff like that. And so I woke up and I was very upset, like hysterical. So I was like, okay. And I just walked straight to the police station, and I went to tell them, like, I don't know, like, what this situation is, or like, what do you do when you have these messages coming in? So I tried to talk to someone there, and they were just kind of like, well, stay off the internet. And I was like, well, this isn't an option for me because I just quit my job and I'm trying to launch my business. So this is the platform that I need to do that. It's not really an option for me to not be on the internet. And so then they subsequently decided to send like a patrolling officer to come and get a statement from me at my house. And that happened the following week. And at that point, people were getting more and more messages. So this person wasn't contacting me directly at this point. They were just contacting people I knew and like sending the weirdest stuff, like saying that like I stalked and harassed young hot models and like, I don't know, stuff that didn't even make sense to me. I couldn't even connect the dots. I couldn't think who was doing this to me. And so, so that was happening. And at this point it was becoming more and more frequent. And the police officer advised me, he just said, make a Facebook status, make it public, let them know that the police are involved. And typically, because he was like, you probably know this person, which I was like, I don't think I do. Like, I don't know anyone like this. And he was like, no, you probably know this person. Make this status. Once they see that there's police involvement, the likelihood is that they will stop. So I said, okay. And I did that. And I apologized to anyone who got these messages because it's like disturbing. I feel awful that people had to get these. And I just let them know, the police are involved and hopefully the issue will be resolved. But then because that was out there, I feel like it I don't know, like was like pouring gasoline on a fire. So then from there, it became like a daily thing. So the first message I got, I think it was like mid-July when I was home. At this point, it was like September. And so every morning when I would wake up, I would get a flood of messages from people that this person was contacting. So he would start at like 2 a.m. in the morning, would send out like dozens and dozens of messages to people. And they would always be really disparaging things about me. Just saying that, like, I don't know, he said I had a penis and like some other like awful things, and anyways, so, and then it would be like, they made all of these anonymous accounts and it would be like anti-stalking Nova Scotia, anti-racism Halifax, like stuff like that. And then they would be urging people to contact the police to arrest me. So, I mean, I don't feel like I've ever fostered that type of relationships with people to like merit someone attacking me. And it was really stressful because at the time I was like, I don't know who's doing this. And it was hard for me to just like do things, like, and it was every day. And he started targeting people that were in my industry. So like he would contact other makeup artists and say these things, or he would post under their photos. And for me, like, I would be okay even just receiving those messages directly because it's, to me, not an issue because it's not a real thing. But to be affecting other people's businesses, especially like people who are friends of mine, because he would leave like bad business reviews, like 1 stars, and then it would just be this huge rant about me. And so that was really hard. And I feel like you're so vulnerable on the internet and you don't realize it because I would be racking my brain because you get so, you start thinking like, who's doing this, and you're going through all these lists of people and you're like, who have I made this upset or angry to kind of attack me like this? And I couldn't figure it out because there was no like, unifying stream between the people who were getting these messages. Because some people were people that I went to high school with that I haven't talked to in like 10 years. Whereas like other people were people that I knew from work or, other makeup artists. And so I was trying to think like, who is a common person who knows all these people that I know? And what I've kind of figured out was that he was just going through whoever liked my photos on Facebook and then just contacting them. So really just anyone who would like my like profile photos or any open photos. Any information that was on my profile, just use that. So like where I grew up, my hometown, he started contacting the town council of my hometown. And like you just don't realize what's on the internet. And then when you have someone saying that you're like a prostitute and stuff like that, you're going through your photos and you're like, wow, I should probably delete this photo of me in a bikini, or like, like you just feel like things can be interpreted a different way when there's someone creating these false allegations about you. So, so eventually it was the weirdest experience. It was like pulling a string.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because people were really patient and kind with me. Like my old work had to remove any photos of me on their platforms because it just, the amount of messages that they would get because of it. And so my sister was helping me, all the girls at work, because they would always get so many messages. There was one coworker, Angela Hicks, thank you. She was documenting all the messages they were getting and keeping it on a thumb drive. And so was my sister. Like, we would get a message, I would send it to my sister. She would like date it, organize it, and keep it. So we had a record of all these messages. But eventually it was like my old manager at work mentioned something to one of the other managers at the department store I worked at. And she was like, you know, Jenny's getting all these messages. It's really awful. And then this manager was like, oh, yeah, I may have received like a text message, something like that a couple years ago. And so then that was passed along to me and I followed up on it. And I was like, hi, like I heard you got some messages. Do you mind like, you know, sending that to the police? Do you still have a copy of it? And she was like, yeah, no problem. And like she sent these messages to the police and she CC'd me on the email. So I'm going through all these screenshots of these text messages and it's like from the direct person, verbatim, all the stuff that I'm seeing in these messages. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I'm like, this is who it is. And who it is just a guy who used to work in the department store with me across from me. And literally we had one interaction when I was closing the store and I was leaving the store and he was like, and I would always catch him looking at me. And of course I would be uncomfortable and I would just kind of try to avoid him. I'd smile though and be polite because I feel like, you know, what do you do? Like, I'm just that type of person. Like, you know, you just smile at someone but, you know, you're polite and you just don't try to engage them because, you know, I had a boyfriend at the time too. But when I was closing the store one night, he stopped me to talk to me. And what I was anticipating was he was just going to like try to ask me on a date or something. But instead he told me he saw the way I looked at him and I wasn't looking at him the same way, which was really bizarre to me because I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, how am I looking at you, you know? And then he said a couple other things that kind of like crossed the line for me. And I remember panicking a little bit because there was no one else in the department store. There was just like a security man at the other end. So I was like, man, I have to get out of here. I told him like, that's enough. And like, I have to go. And I left. And then after that, I told my manager, cause I got in my car and I cried and I called a coworker and I was like, you won't believe what happened. And she was like, that's inappropriate. Like you need to tell our manager. So the next day at work, I called my manager. I let her know what happened. She agreed it was inappropriate. So, but she knows like I'm so bad with conflict. So she was just like, you know, do you want me to go as your representative to HR and just like tell them about it? And I was like, yes, please. So she did that and that was it. And I think they just had a meeting with him. And then I had one other interaction where he stopped me one day and he was like, I need to talk to you. And I was kind of like, oh God, like, what is it? And he just said like, you misunderstood me. And I was like, okay. And I was like, if that's it and I misunderstood you, then that's fine. I just said, you know, like, we'll avoid each other and that's okay. Like, I don't, you know, I'll go my way, you go your way. And I used to, like, after that, I would always leave the store in the opposite end that his section was because I just was like, I'm going to avoid this person. But that was like 2 to 3 years prior to all of this starting. And eventually he stopped working at the department store. And I never thought anything of it, but that was it. You know? And so then at that point we knew who was doing it. And so then it was like frustrating because it's like, you know, everyone knows who's doing it and they're still doing it to such a high volume and degree, but you can't do anything about it, right? Like the police are handling it. And at this point it was passed over to like the Internet Crimes Unit. So we were told specifically, because we had all these messages, but what we needed were the direct URLs of the profiles that were sending it. So every time that someone got a message, we had to get the address that was after like the last /. And so then finally we had all these messages with the direct profiles and we sent that to the police and they sent that information to Facebook and then they sent back the IPs, which then they brought back to the cable companies, and then they got the information, and it was the same person. Yeah. So eventually he was arrested, and I remember it was like at the end of the fall. It was like the beginning of November. Because I remember on my birthday, which is Halloween, I was like, I'm going to try to enjoy myself. I'm going to like do a yoga class. And the first part of my day was amazing. But then like by noon, I started getting a ton of messages from people. And I remember being really upset, and it sucked. And then that weekend, I was going on a trip with my sister to North Carolina. And we were just doing like a spiritual conference, which my mom was like, you need this. You need to like relax. And because it sucked. It was like permeating every part of my life. Because it was like I couldn't not think about it. And I just felt like me and my mom would be fighting about things. And it was a very high stress time for me. But yeah, I remember the last couple of messages we got from him were really intense, and he was like threatening to kill me and stuff, or like to hurt my family. And then he was arrested, and then he had a no contact order, and it all stopped, and that was it. And then it was just like done. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, thanks for sharing that. I remember, the thing about the internet is it's like, with almost everything, it's like super good and super bad. And when people have that feeling of, I have a mask and I can say whatever I want to say to this person and nobody's going to know I'm the one saying it, people tend to have this bravado and do things like that and take it to that level.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't think that I definitely think it was a mental health issue. I don't really know any details because it's not, it's not a public thing. So, I mean, but it is scary. Like it's a reality. And I mean, that's probably why I don't include myself more on my like business page and stuff, just because like I do feel vulnerable. I always like second guess if I should even upload anything. Like my personal Instagram page is so boring because literally I'm like, do I need to share this with people? Like, maybe not. Like if I ever post that I'm somewhere, it will be like after I've left, because I'm like, I'm just so conscious of like just putting too much information out publicly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna just slide.
Okay. Change paces a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna do that. With makeup, right? Is there like too much or too little, or is it just about the person?
Yes, it is. It's about the client and what their preference is. And it's so funny because, yeah, like I have some clients that are so minimalist and they want something really soft and chic. And they're like, I want my husband to recognize me when I'm coming down the aisle. And I'm like, fair, amazing. And then I have other clients who are like, I want to look glam. I want to look over the top. This is my day, which I'm all here for. I'm like, more glam. Let's do it. You came to the right girl. So really, I don't think, and I always say this, I don't think there's any right or wrong when it comes to makeup, because it's like personal expression, right? And that's the spice of life, right?
Okay, I'll end with this one though. What if someone is watching that's like, I'm like Jennifer and I want to do makeup. Yeah. What advice would you give this person?
Do it. And, it's not as hard as you think it is. Like I always think, because I think you overthink things, and maybe it's just me. I have a lot of like personal, like negative self-talk, but I mean, you can do it. You can do it even if you have very few resources. I mean, you can find friends to practice on. You can use their own makeup on them. You know what I mean? There's always people that want this service and, that will let you create. Volunteer. I think that's really important. I think looking for opportunities to kind of give back to your community, and it's a way for you to work and practice, and it's like a give and take relationship. So I think just do it. Take the plunge. Every small step seems inconsequential, but it's always a step forward. So I always tell myself that, you know, it's like momentum, right? Like you don't know how like the dots will connect or from what opportunity another opportunity will come from. So just do it all, you know, say yes.
Say yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in today, Jennifer.
Thank you for
thank you
having
for
me.
sharing that. And,
course.
you know, I'm glad things are moving forward in a positive way.
Yeah, me too. This is like the happiest I've been in a really long time. So
Thank you.
thanks.
This is the Blackout Podcast. Thanks for listening.